Oh, yeah.
The only thing is we can't.
Yeah, so,
Get it all there. Count as long as you can.
and we're all strapped in there. Let me know.
Yes, I will let you know when she arrives. I think they're going to be. You know. Hey, John, how are you?
It's where
Oh, so we.
it's not Indivisible. But anyway. But she cut off I know we need to get rid of photo for the and to see her just kind of
Hello everyone, we're going to start our research program, we're going to begin. So, we have a special guest that I would like to introduce you all to. This is someone who has been fighting for progressive change here in Illinois in the General Assembly. I'd like to introduce you to Rachel Ventura. She represents the Joliet area. State Senator.
Yes, thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, and it's okay if most of the room doesn't know me, I am from Joliet, born and raised. I spent 14 years out of the state, somewhat as a military spouse for 10 years and 4 years after college. Why am I up here? I am the state senator in the 43rd district, and I did not have an easy pathway there. So just a little background about me, and then I'm going to talk to you about the state budget, and if there's time, a couple of issues. And unfortunately, because of the way they're structured, I can't take questions at this forum, but please, you can contact me at senatorventura.com. I'd love to speak with you afterwards if you do have questions. So a little background about me. So I was born and raised. I had a union parents. Both my dad was a bridge tender for the Teamsters, and my mom eventually became a teacher. She was a stay-at-home mom initially, but I was born in '81, the time of Reagan. And Reagan economics slowly deteriorated the family from a one income to a necessity of a two income, and now we have more needs than just that. So thank you, 40 years of Reagan economics. So fast forward, my family found themselves in poverty. I have 3 siblings, so a total family of 6. And when I was in college, my mom was finishing college and my 3 siblings were all in college. I went to school for mathematics. I then worked for the insurance companies thinking this will get me out of poverty. And it did. And it challenged my moral standing. I realized that working for health insurance initially, the rise of managed care, I was an actuary working on basically putting hospitals and doctors out of business. I didn't realize that at the time. I was 19 in my first internship when I started that career path. Later, I went on to work for the 3rd largest life insurance company in the world, and that was really when the light bulb moment happened, that I was siphoning dollars out of the middle class and out of people who needed their benefits at a time when their loved ones had died more than ever, and companies were clawing back amounts. And I was like, I cannot continue to do that. At this point, I was living in California. I had my math degree, and I was working for the Wildlife Waste Station on the side, volunteering with large cats. And I decided, you know what? I want to go back to school to be a veterinarian. So I started the process. In that process, I also ended up getting married to a man in the Navy, and I got a degree in biology. I worked as a pet nurse, and I realized the pet healthcare system isn't that much different than human healthcare system. And I was like, do I really want to spend $250,000 to be in debt and then have to basically create profit off of dogs' illnesses or cats' illnesses? And there was a lot of exploitation because it's not like the animal can tell you what they need. So you are at the trust of your veterinarian. So get some good vets out there. It was at that point that I was like, I don't want to continue to go into a system that's just about money. I want to do more than that. And so I became a naturalist on the state parks in Georgia. I was restoring the longleaf pine forest and trying to save the gopher tortoise, which is a keystone species, when the Navy ripped us away to the West Coast. I then got into international publishing. We published game books, so for my D&D fans out there, I worked for Legendary Games for 10 years. And I was also sold scrapbooking supplies. So I was not on the pathway to becoming a politician. This was not my life goal. But in 2016, during the primary, the Democratic primaries, I started getting involved heavily into Bernie's campaign. And I ended up going through my divorce because my marriage got physically violent. It had been abusive for some time. It was just finally the physical violence that woke me up to it. So in 2016, the summer of, I moved my children back here to Illinois, and I had no idea what I was going to do. Should I go back to being an actuary, making lots of money while selling my soul, or should I do something different? It was my dad who encouraged me to get involved in local politics, and I remember when he told me to run for city council at the time, I laughed at him. I said, Dad, my kids and I live in a 10 by 10 room in your house with built-in bunk beds that we make because there wasn't enough room, with whatever we could fit into my car. I'm going through a contentious divorce. I cuss like a sailor. I tell people how it is, and I ruffle feathers. I'm the worst person to be a politician. And he said, but you would make a really good public servant. So I still cuss like a sailor, so you'll have to bear with me. But I think he was right, because I am one of 3 senators in the state who do not take corporate PAC dollars. So I ran for city council. I did not win my first race. There was 15 candidates. We don't have primaries in Joliet city races, and the top 3 got the seat. I came in number 5. That was a huge win really though for me, because people were like, who is this person? How did she come from nowhere with no money? And we beat one of the incumbents. They lost their seat. And so how did I do it? I knocked doors. My dad was involved in politics in the 70s. He served on the county board 40 years before I was born, and he showed me how to pull a voter list and go knock on doors. So I learned it the old school way. I still do it that way today. And I went and talked to people and met them with where they were at, and I pushed them where I thought they needed to be. And I think that's a big part of ground up politics. When we start at the bottom and we find out what's going on, we can find solutions for those individuals. But I was encouraged to stay involved, mostly because when I looked behind the curtain, I saw the train wreck, and I thought, okay, should I walk away now because it's really messy behind that curtain, or do I continue to stay and fight? Because if not me, then who? And so I stayed involved. I ran for the county board against the wishes of the Democratic Party. I was a top vote getter in the primary and went on to beat the other candidates by 15 percentage points in the general election. So I served on the county board for 4 years. I chaired public health through COVID. I also was the vice president of our forest preserve. In 2019, I ran for Congress against Bill Foster because we needed more climate answers and climate justice. We also need a medical system that works for everyone. We need universal health care, and we had met with him a number of times, and he refused to hear our issues. Our district polled at 70% they wanted universal health care, and he was unwilling to meet with us while taking money from the pharmaceutical company. Okay, so we're going to get on to, so in 2020, sorry, I was getting a little too on the other side. In 2020, I ran for the state senate. And I've been sitting 2021 I ran for it. And so I've been in that seat ever since. This is my 3rd year as a state senator. And so I want to talk a little bit about our recent budget. I chair a Human Rights Committee, so you've heard a lot about some of our rights that are in danger right now. Illinois has a really good Human Rights Act, and we continue to tweak that as needed to help protect people here in Illinois. I also vice chair Public Health. I sit on local government, child welfare, and financial institutions, and the big one is I sit on appropriations. So, all that being said, we do have the largest wealth cap now that we've ever had in America. It's bigger than the turn of the last century when the robber barons ran this country, so it's an issue. We already talked about our bought and paid for government in Congress. So what does the federal cuts do? Obviously, many of you know this is for billionaire tax cuts, and how does it hurt us? So at the state, some of these federal cuts obviously hurt Medicaid. What does it look like from a state level? Can we fill the gap if they cut the Medicaid expansion? The Medicaid expansion is above pregnant women and disabilities. And beyond that, it looks at low-income eligibility. And that's about 700 to 800,000 people in our state, and it would be a $7 billion gap that we would have to fill that we get from the federal government right now. So that's what that looks like if they cut just the expansion. If they cut additional aspects of that, like our disabled and our pregnant women, people who can't work, that number gets to be a lot bigger. 38% of our budget, which is $55 billion budget, is spent on healthcare. So again, if we have universal healthcare, then 38% of our budget would then be available for services that we need here in our state. SNAP benefits are at risk, housing benefits, especially rapid rehousing benefits, food safety, like the USDA, we've already begun to see these cuts. So we have a portion of meat factories here that we inspect at the state, and then we have ones from the federal government. The federal government has already begun to pull back their dollars on those facilities. So if you're eating meat from Illinois that's raised here in Illinois, it's safe because the Illinois inspectors are looking at that. If you are eating a federal product, I cannot guarantee you that because that USDA factory here or inspection here in Illinois may not be operating right now. And then education, we've seen cuts, future cuts to that. The tariffs are impacting our economy, obviously. But right here in Illinois, what ends up happening is we don't bring as much sales revenues in. We don't bring as much income revenue in. We see our farmers are really being impacted by this. So those economic impacts, the uncertainty of what's happening in the country ends up impacting us in multiple ways. I mean, not just your pocketbook, but when the state can't bring those dollars in as well, because you're not purchasing as much, you're not making as much, you're not driving around and spending your money as much, then that hurts us as well. And then we either have to cut services or make up the difference. And then of course, just good old price gouging here in America is also hurting all of us. So before I get too much further into the budget, I want to do a big thank you to our Attorney General, Kwame Raoul. So earlier they talked about our governor, and our governor is fantastic. But Kwame Raoul is really on the front lines fighting that in court. He's filing the cases. When these federal cuts came down, like the USDA is a perfect example of that, we fought back, and some of that federal funding that has been frozen has now been lifted because of the court cases that the state of Illinois has been going to court. So we ended up expanding his budget. It was one of the only agencies in the whole state who got an increase in their budget, was his budget by $15 million. So he could hire more attorneys to fight the Trump administration and the federal administration. Yes. Okay, so let's talk about our big budget, $55 billion. Last year was $53 billion. So the first thing I hear from the other side of the aisle is, well, haven't you ever considered cutting your spending? Well, okay, let's look around right now in Illinois. With this big budget, are all of your needs being taken care of? Are your housing needs being taken care of? Are all your education needs being taken care of? Are your food needs being taken care of? Are your job needs taken care of? I don't think anyone can stand up here and say all of their needs are being taken care of. And so that's one reason why we aren't cutting the programming. We did freeze, we had all of our agencies hold the line, but the reality is that we're still hurting. That wealth gap I talked about at the beginning is what's hurting us. We've siphoned dollars out for 40 years and then expect our community to do the same with less. And we adapted and we adapted. Well, we are in the boiling pot now. So either we get out and do something different, or we're just going to boil. So some of us want to stop that. And so how do we do that? So, and one other point about that. $53 billion last year. The inflation alone was $1.6 billion. So when we talk about, well, can't you just cut things? Yeah, well, inflation is a big part of that rise. So just for us to stay level, we still have to bring in more money. All right, so let's talk about how we balance this budget, because there were things that were cut out that people were very upset about. This was the hardest vote I've had to take in Springfield, but we did have some revenue wins that helped us from preventing more cuts. So we changed a few things. We changed our accounting system from Finnegan to Joyce, which brought in more dollars. We ended up passing what's called a guilty tax for those who try to hide their money outside of the United States. And so we had some progressive wins in going after the rich to pay their fair share. One of the big things that became a fight in the final days was a digital ad tax. So a digital ad tax is taxing Facebook, it's taxing Google, it's taxing the people who run the ads on your streaming services. They run those ads now, they make lots of profit, and they pay zero in taxes. So that would have been about $1 billion. Several progressives were pushing for this, but in the end of the days, the moderates carved it out, and we passed the budget without it, which is frustrating, but there were some wins there. So the majority of the dollars that we raised come from taxing the rich, which was a huge win for us. We've been fighting for that a long time, but we left $3 to $5 billion on the table of simply taxing the rich. Things like the digital ad tax, continuing to go after people who have tax shelters in other countries, as well as just maxing out the corporate rate. So our Constitution allows for a 5 to 8 ratio. So if you all pay 5% in income taxes, corporations have to pay 8%, except for we only charge them 7% right now. So even just changing that to right is available for us right now to that 8% ratio, we would bring in another $1 billion. So I think it's important to recognize we have needs in this state, and the people who are not paying their fair share could help us get there. So one of the things that we are working towards doing is getting off of the flat tax, which is a regressive tax, especially when you have corporate loopholes, and moving to a graduated income tax for people who make more than $300,000 a year. And then it ramps up. Yes, everyone. What does that do? That allows us to actually create middle-class tax relief. Things like property relief, things like just a decrease in your income taxes. With the ratio we have now, 5 to 8, in order to get companies to pay more, I have to increase your business taxes. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants that. We recognize that would be harmful to us. But we are getting to the point where we cannot backfill the federal government's cuts. So they continue to cut things like education. They continue to cut health care. If we want those things in this state, they talked about earlier about how important the state is, then we need to have a mechanism that allows us to get that. If our federal government will not give it to us, our state is willing to provide that, but we cannot do it on the backs of the middle class. We cannot do it on the backs of the poor. And that is the system we have today, but we have an avenue to change it. It's going to be a ballot referendum, and we're going to need all of your help. The last thing I will talk about briefly, do I have time?
Still
Okay.
good.
I want to talk about a few things that are still going that were not in the budget. There's still conversations. The transit is a big conversation. Chicago transit in the suburbs, public transportation, the systems are not working to the way that people need them to work. We don't have the frequency of trains and buses. We don't have coordination. These are some real problems. We need about $1.5 billion to invest in making sure we have those things so we have a working public transportation system. This is really important for the future. And so we want to continue to work on this. The Senate did pass the transit bill, but the House did not. So we may go back to special session, because just like in Congress, if the House changes the bill, it goes back to the Senate on concurrence before the governor can sign it. So if you have concerns about that or questions, reach out to your local lawmakers. The energy package, IEC, Kate was up here, she did a great job. We have energy needs, and big data centers like AI and data center, other Facebook and Meta, they want to come here, and they don't want to have to be held accountable for their own energy uses. And they are a huge driver. So while we passed CEDRA a few years ago, that would help us move to sustainable energy, and we have certain goals. When we have an increase in that demand because of these data centers, and we're not able to raise the sustainable like wind and solar quickly, then we're all going to be paying for it. So the energy bill said that the data centers had to procure their own sustainable energy or pay the rec credits to do so. And they wanted to be carved out of the bill and on the last day. So the bill didn't move. So we have a lot of work there. But again, it's time to go back to your representatives and say, we need the rich to pay their fair share. They're making a ton of money on our data, on the tech era that we live in. And so if we don't get it right now, the next 100 years will be a bigger wealth gap. So I think that energy, we do need to procure more energy, but we need to be wise in our protections and regulations. They talked a little bit about safe schools for all. This was passed by the House and the Senate. We're waiting for the governor to sign it. We do believe he will sign it, and this will help immigrants when their children are going to school and some other spaces. Overall, we have to really rein in some of the privatization, whether that's privatized healthcare, privatized food, they're buying up our water, venture capitals are coming in, buying housing, like this becomes a bigger and bigger problem. So if you care about the things I talked about, they are all happening in the state. Your House reps, your senators are all taking a varied position on the things I talked about. They need to hear from you. So I want to thank you all for being here, and I'm really, truly, organization starts from the grassroots. It starts first in your mindset and your heart, and when you go and find someone who's got the same mindset or heart as you do, you have an organization, and continue to grow it. I just applaud your guys' efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Michaela. Right, without further ado, I would like to introduce someone that needs no introduction. She is the Congresswoman from the Illinois 2nd Congressional District. I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Robin Kelly. So, Congresswoman Robin Kelly represents the Illinois 2nd Congressional District, which stretches from the south side of Chicago, well into the south suburbs, and straddles the border along Indiana, all the way down to below Danville. Congresswoman Robin Kelly has championed numerous initiatives to reduce health disparities, create job growth, and end gun violence since taking office in 2013. She is committed to improving health, wellness, and for vulnerable communities, as well as across the country. And she has taken on the gun lobby and won. And if you Congresswoman Kelly serves on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, and she's also on the Democratic Policy Group, and she's the co-chair for the Maternity Care Caucus. So I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Robin Kelly. Congresswoman, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and before Congress? I know that you served in the State House before Congress. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, hello everybody. Nice to see all of you, and thanks for inviting me. I am Congresswoman Kelly, and I have a very big district, the biggest Democratic district in the state of Illinois. I'm a person that never ever thought that I would run for office. I was minding my business one day, and 5 men came to me and asked me to run, which is really interesting that it was 5 men. Sorry, men. But honestly, I told them, no, I can't do it. I said, I'm too sensitive. If they talk about me in the paper, I'll cry. This is all true, and also they saw in me things I didn't see in myself. And I talked to my family and friends and decided that I would truly take a leap of faith. Really, my background is social service. I always knew I wanted to be in a role that helped people, that lift boats. So my undergrad is in psych, my master's is in counseling from Bradley University, And I have a PhD in political science, but I often say the psych and counseling helped me more on the job I have now, especially, than anything I could learn as far as political science. But I took the leap of faith and I ran, and I served for 4 years, and I gave up my seat because another person begged me to work with him, and that was Alexi Janulius, so I was his chief for 4 years in the treasurer's office. And then we all ran, and 2010 was not a good year for Democrats. We all lost. And then I was Tony Preckwinkle's chief administrative office. And then I got the opportunity to run for Congress when Jesse Jackson Jr. actually won, but decided he wasn't going to run. So with my love of wanting to help people, truly being a public servant, that's really what informs what I do. And because my district is very, very diverse, but I just look at it no matter where you live, people want a roof over their head, most people want a job, most people want, or all people I would think, want good health care, quality education, and they want to feel safe. So that's how I operate, no matter who I represent. And I feel like whether you voted for me or not, I am truly trying to lift all boats, because we all do better when we all do better. I have 4,500 farms in my district, and I know my district stopped at Kankakee, and then in the redistricting, it went south of Danville, west of Pontiac. And I know when they saw me coming, there was a nasty op-ed that I would ignore people, below Cook or Will, and my staff was so upset, but I said, let's show them, we're not gonna tell them. So I quickly opened the office in Danville. I hired who I think is a superstar in Danville to run my office. There's a person and a half down there, and we went to work. And my farmers and my mayors have all said, we didn't think we were gonna like you, but we didn't. So in my last election, I got more votes down there too, but I really tried to tell people, I don't care if you live next to me or you live the furthest away from me, you're in my district and I'm here to serve you. A big swath of my portfolio is healthcare, because I don't care how much money you have, if you don't have your health, you don't have a lot. So I've done a lot of work around access, inequality, maternal mortality and morbidity. I brought that to Congress just listening to a constituent. That's why your voices are so important. A constituent told me a story, and when she told me the story of someone who died, I hit the ground running, and we had a forum in DC, and I was shocked how crowded the forum was. I had no idea that it was such a problem. I'm embarrassed to say, I had no idea. And then I, of course, learned so much in the last 10 years, and we still have a lot of work to do around that. And it was my legislation that was passed through President Biden that extended the postpartum Medicaid period from 60 days to a year. And I know it saved lives. And it was informed by, the people in the business, OBGYNs, doulas, midwives, nurses. I listened to the people that are doing the job. And this is what they told me they felt was needed. And of course, I spoke to survivors and also family members of people that died, that shared with me what they felt was needed. I still do a lot of work around gun violence prevention, and it's embarrassing that we have not done more. It's so embarrassing. And my part of the bill that did pass was the straw purchasing trafficking, because I would go to DC and people would say, what is up with Chicago? They have the toughest gun laws, but look at what's happening. But if no one else around you has tough gun laws, and I had Chucks in my district, the gun shop, and they were notorious, like crime guns can be traced back to just a certain amount of gun dealers, and they were one of them, and happy to say Chuck's closed. And I'm not against guns. My grandparents had a mom and pop grocery store in New York, and if I wanted to go to the bathroom, I jumped over my grandpa's rifle every day. And but if you're not trying to hurt yourself or anybody else, and you have your gun legally, I don't think you need a military weapon, but then I'm fine with it. And I know, like, our gun violence prevention task force, the head of it may have more guns than people in this room. It's his hobby. His hobby is guns, and he is a wine grower, a little scary combination, but he makes it work. But so that's very much been a part of my portfolio, and other things like workforce development. Me and actually my Republican partner, he drug me into it, I will admit, with our artificial intelligence and just making sure that our young people and people displaced have the tools they need to find jobs of today and also the jobs of tomorrow. But I passed just a litany of different kind of bills, or at least tried to pass them, as far as anything with, immigration, anything with, healthcare that's going to improve the lives of people, with the environment, just things I think that everyday people, want to see. That's what I'm a part of. So.
Thank you, Congresswoman. So we are going to take a few questions. There are cards that are going to be passed around in the room. So if you do have a question for the Congresswoman, there are going to be cards that are being passed around, and we will bring those up to the front, and then I will call on you with those questions.
I guess I didn't say this, but I am running for Senate. I am running for Senate, and I'm going to take a lot of the work that I'm doing now to the Senate. I know I'm very ready and very able to do the job. I am not a show horse, I'm a workhorse, so a lot of times people don't even know how much, I have done and contributions that I have made, because my staff and I, no one does the work by themselves. I've been blessed with a wonderful staff for 12 years, and a lot of them have been with me the whole 12 years to help me make decisions and decide how I'm gonna vote and different things like that. So I just, I wanna go to the Senate and serve the whole state. I was the party chair. As I said, I worked for Alexi, and then I was a Democratic nominee for treasurer. So I've been up and down and around this whole state, and I'm from New York, but my entry into Illinois was Peoria, where I lived mostly for 20 years. Both my kids were born there. So I'm not a stranger to Central Illinois.
Congresswoman, can you tell us what it's been like serving in Congress recently, especially after January 6th, and what was it like being in Congress on January 6th?
Well, January 6th, I remember the day well. We were looking over the balcony, we were certifying Biden's win, and then all of a sudden, we saw somebody being pulled off the floor. I saw a police officer running, and the next thing I know, we were the only ones left in the gallery. I don't know if they forgot about us, but we were the last 20. But, we were on the more Dem side, and then we ran to the Republican side, and the next thing we knew, guns were out. They told us to lay low, so me and 19 of my colleagues were on our hands and knees laying flat, because if they didn't shoot the woman, not that we wanted the woman to be shot and killed, but they were coming after us next. So we laid flat, and I still remember 3 knocks on the door, and we were taking off any identifying feature that we were in Congress. It was COVID, so a lot of us, like I had Rep. Robin Kelly on my mask, and we had our pins on, so we took everything off and laid there until there were 3 knocks on the door. And frankly, we were scared to answer the door because we didn't know, who was on the other side. But it was the Capitol Police, and I remember running down the stairs, running through the halls to get to a safe place. And I don't know if my adrenaline kicked in, but I was running around making sure other people, were okay. But also after that, I was proud of the Democrats because we went back at 3:30 in the morning to make sure that Biden's race was certified. And then I never went to sleep. So really, I didn't know really what happened until I watched the news. We didn't know what was going on. And so I watched the news, and I never went to sleep. And I remember when I was catching my Southwest flight, I remember at 8 o'clock in the morning, I was so happy to jump on that plane to come back to Illinois. But, and I remember Chewy Garcia was on the plane, and I paid extra money to Southwest so I could go on first. Because they don't give us all those passes like people think, and I saved a seat for Chewy, but he didn't have anywhere to put his bag. So he was in the back with some of those same people. And I remember I had 2 news interviews, and I was huddled in the corner, sweatpants, sweatshirt. I didn't want anybody to say anything about Congresswoman Kelly. That's how we all felt. And one of my colleagues was on a flight. They had to return the flight to the gate because the people were unruly. And my colleagues, I went to Minnesota, the people knew who they were harassing them on the flight, and the same thing with those that went to California. So the day is clear in my mind, and I try to work in a bipartisan way if it helps the people. You know, I have examples of, you know, more dental care for unserved and underserved people, my first piece of legislation, and I worked with 5 dentists, they were all Republican. But I thought that was a good thing to do. But I never give up my values though. So what happened, after we were back to whatever you want to call normal, I dropped Republicans off my bill. I wouldn't work with them anymore because they said, you know, Love Fest, it was a touristy day, and those kind of things. And some of them did not vote to certify the election. So that day will forever stand in my mind. And you know, the group had, and it's something they would not like me to say, but group counseling, and for some of my colleagues, even, I'm trying to think, something that just happened triggered once again, you know, and some of my colleagues have stayed in counseling because of that period, you know. I didn't let myself believe I'm gonna die, and I remember saying, man, I do so much gun violence work, is this the way it's gonna end? But I just wouldn't let myself concentrate on that. But no, it was horrible.
Can you speak a bit about the disrespect for the rule of law that we're seeing out of the current administration? What are congressional members doing to try to stop some of these?
Well, you know what? Thank God for attorney generals and the judges that have sense. Even some judges he put in place, not the Supreme Court, but the other judges in the courts, because really they have been the firewall, you know, for us. And I think we learned that as soon as we have enough votes, there are some things we need to do. We need to codify, possibly do different with the Constitution, or you know, like when you pass petitions in Illinois, unless you do certain things, you get kicked off the ballot. You know, we need to have that. I don't care what office, you know, you're running for, because there's things he didn't do, like showing his taxes, you know, things he didn't do that everybody else needs to do. But we're trying to speak to everybody we can talk to tell them what's going on. Yes, we're there, but you are our partners, to be honest with you. You know, no matter how we vote, we don't have the numbers unless brave Republicans cross over, and we're not going to find them in Illinois, I'm sorry to say, but unless they cross over and vote with us. And they tell us, they know it's not right. They tell us that, but they're still not going to, not all of them, but they tell us that we know this is not right, but they're afraid of retaliation, and retaliation could be primary or because of what happened January 6th. Some of them are afraid of violent retaliation. I think, I don't know if I have the years exactly right, but let's say 5 years ago, there were like 1,700 attacks or threats, I'll say, to members of Congress. Is up to 9,000 now. And then what just happened in Minnesota, it's scary. You know, it's scary. But I will say, you know, about a lot of them, if you're not willing to do your job, if you're that scared to speak up, you need to leave. You need to leave. So, but some of them say, we leave, the person coming in the door. I think it's hard to imagine now. So it's not, it's very frustrating, disappointing, any words you could think of. You know, even people we know that know better, even people that are nice, they're still going along with the program.
We're seeing numerous ICE raids all across the country. We're seeing them in Illinois. We're also seeing members of Congress that are going to ICE facilities and they're being turned away. Could you speak a little bit about your thoughts on what's happening with ICE currently, and what can Congress do to stop that, and what can we do to support it?
You know, always you guys speaking up, you know, helps tremendously. And I don't know state by state, Senator knows better than me, like what, you know, possibly can be done in that way. But we're going to the detention centers to bring, you know, attention to it and what's happening. And you know, people are speaking out all over the country. You see what happened. My colleague, Monica MacGyver, just had to go to court, and she pleaded not guilty. And the video shows she did not do what they said, but it's just being so politicized. And so they're trying to make an example of her. They're trying to kick her off committees, trying to kick her out of Congress. Actually, so we're all giving her money to fight her case because she has to use her own money. And so we're all, giving her money so she could fight her case. But the interesting thing is that after they made that big commotion in New Jersey, after all the crowd was gone, they still took them through the ICE Center and gave them a tour. But nobody knows that part, that everything still happened that they were trying to let happen. But, we just have to keep fighting, pushing back, letting the public know, what's going on. I mean, they have such carte blanche from the White House, That's the other thing, we have to do more about executive orders. They just can't be rampant, like this. I don't care who's the president, Democrat or Republican.
Thank you, Congresswoman. We want to thank you for making the trip here. I know it was a long day for you. I know you had something in Chicago a little earlier on. We appreciate that. We did invite others. We want to thank you for making the trip and for actually being here with us and for being open to taking questions directly from the audience. That is greatly, greatly appreciated. Could you talk with us a little bit about what we can do as Indivisible members to support members of Congress that are vocal, to support them in being more vocal, to speaking out against some of the things that they're seeing from the administration? We know that many members of Congress are with us on these issues, and some people are afraid to speak out. What can we do to encourage our members of Congress to be much more vocal in their resistance?
Really hearing from you and knowing that you're on the right, a person's on the right track, especially if they live in a, not red, because the red is Republican, but in a purple district before the red district. That's why I had a town hall meeting out of my district, because I wanted to make sure that Democrats, but not only Democrats, independents and Republicans came too, to make sure that people had a voice, since my colleagues aren't having town hall meetings, or I don't even think tele-town hall meetings, but I'm not positive about that. But yeah, calling them and letting them hear from you and saying, we got you, you're on the right track. I think, you kind of hear the negative a lot of times, but, to hear the positive also. And if you do have a Republican representative, come see them when they're in the district. We don't want them to be allowed to get away with what they're doing. That's really important also. And, you can call the White House, but I think, members hearing from, everyday folks, hearing from the people that we represent. Again, all the things that I've done, I didn't think of all those things. People informed me, told me how they felt, about things, or I might have thought one way, but then they gave me the other side of the story. Stories matter, and that's why we're going all over the country. I've been in, Collegeville, Pennsylvania. I've been in Norfolk, listening to, vets, listening to people that deal with child care, that deal with SNAP, that are union people that are losing their jobs. See, even that we need to talk about more, because their people are stopping their investment in solar and environmental type things, and all the people they train, now they're not going to have a job. We had a union member from 134, where was I? And I'm all over the place. In Pennsylvania, talked to us about that. So what he's trying to do with the ugly bill and more is hurting so many people. And what I tell people, don't think about what they're doing to them only, because soon we'll all be them. It may not hit you now, but it's coming. Whether it's Medicaid, Medicare, whatever different things that he's trying to do that, may not come to you yet, but we're all, what he's doing with immigration, what they haven't done with voting rights, it is going to affect everybody.
Congresswoman, we have a number of Indivisible leaders here from across the state. We've got folks all the way from Carbondale, all the way up to Waukegan. So they all want to thank you for being here. We do want to move on to some of their questions, because there are a lot of great questions from Indivisible leaders from across the state. So I would like to call up Jessica, Jermaine, Brandy, for now, and there are a couple of others that don't have names on them, but we will get to them momentarily.
Oh, sorry. First of all, thank you for your service. I appreciate it. This might sound like a crazy question, but
No
the
question.
federal government is clearly breaking laws and not fulfilling their obligations through appropriations already assigned, etc. Is there any possibility that as a state, we can withhold tax revenues or anything until they fulfill their obligations?
I'm looking at Rachel. I don't. Well,
I can answer
you can answer?
So the issue is that your dollars go directly to the IRS. And so while we are a donor state, we get more than we receive back in federal funding. If you did not do that, you would all be violating IRS's laws and they could come after you. So this has been floated. I know other states are looking at it. There were people in the Senate who are also asking about this. We don't know of a legal way at this moment because they basically collectively tell you all to stop paying your taxes. I don't know how that happens. So it's a fancy idea, and yeah, I love to hold them accountable, but I think
They're gonna go after all of us.
so that's the answer from the state.
But you don't want them to go after you, trust me. You know, this is a whole different thing, but I remember when Governor Abbott was sending, doing his human trafficking, and I called the governor and I said, can't we sue? Because this is ridiculous what he's doing to people. And he said, no, there's no way, there's nothing in the law that would allow us to do that. But let's look into that.
Hi, my question is, what advice would you give to people who are interested in running for office, specifically state office, and just kind of don't know where to get started, campaign-wise?
Right. I always tell people you can always look like a young down, get involved, with young downs, or if there's a state person close to you that you think is doing a good job, reflects your issues. We're always looking for, volunteers to help out, or, I have people intern for me, and it's really interesting how it really changes their mind a lot on their views and how they see things, or if there are particular issues that you really, really care about, there's a group for every issue to get involved in that way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We could also welcome up Jen and Kendall Harris as well for your questions.
Come up, young lady.
Hello, Robin. Keep seeing you everywhere.
I hope so.
This is kind of a general question, but you've had some experience fighting the Trump administration, and you've got connections in DC, and you know who you can work with, and so forth. So how can you best help us fight the evil doings of Trump and his ilk? And how can we best work with you on that as senator or continued congresswoman? Either way.
No,
How can
that's
we
not,
best
that
help
way's
you?
not gonna happen. Senator out.
Senator, how can we best help you as well as you help us?
Well, I mean, as you know, since I'm your, I have Vermilion County, what I've tried to help Jermaine and company with is building up their Democratic organization, whether, helping with fundraisers or different things like that. I think we need to shore up the different Democratic organizations. That helps all of us, not just me, but if it's, statewide or whatever, we need more people involved and we need more people voting, more people making suggestions, more people telling their story. But for us, I go back to, we cannot let Republicans off the hook. And where you are, there's a little amount of them around you. I took over for a large part of Mary Miller's district. And when people said to me, man, we're so happy we have a Democrat, I had no idea, and she's a person that did not believe in bringing resources back to her district, even though, as the senator said, we're a donor state. We help Arkansas, Mississippi, on and on and on. She did not believe in that, and I think that's probably why my mayors and farmers said, we like you, because even though they thought I was going to ignore them, I have brought resources, back to Danville, Fairbury, and Livingston County, and on and on and on, and done a lot of orientation about what resources are out there. So that's how I want to help in general, just help, people. But you guys help us by being a voice and letting, I guess, all of us know that you're looking, you're listening, you're holding us accountable, for what we're doing. And again, giving us ideas,
Thank you very much.
Looks like there was a
Question on silencers, if that person can come up. And for everyone that's coming
Hi,
up,
Ms. Kelly.
your names.
My name is Kendall Harrison. I'm formerly from Kankakee, Illinois. You done so much work while I was on the school board with Smith School. You actually came out to the Pembroke Day Parade to run for election, and you are the first Democrat that I voted for.
Thank you.
Thanks to my Uncle George Washington Jr., who was on the county board at the time in Kankakee. So my question is, do you have anything else on gun legislation coming up, or will it even do any good right now?
Honestly, yeah, I have legislation. There's a number of pieces of legislation, not only from me, but Maxwell Frost, Lucy McBath, who lost her son to gun violence. Maxwell, got so involved because of Parkland. Stephen Horsford, we have a bill stopping the cycle of violence, because what we want to do is really get to the ground level. There's a lot of things we need to do, but we need to get to the ground level. We need to get to prevention.
Yes.
And this money will go to proven things that work, proven organizations and those kind of things. We just heard from Everytown and Bill Jackson, who was the deputy of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We're trying to get the office open again, but we know he's not going to open, the office. In fact, they keep making it easier, to have access to guns. So what we were able to pass a couple of years ago, unless some miracle happens, I believe right now, that'll be the thing in place. We're just making sure that most of that stays in place, because they're clawing back monies that were supposed to go to nonprofits, but they have not clawed back whatever municipalities are getting. They haven't done that yet, but who knows, what they're gonna do. It's a shame, but they're evil and cruel. I hate to put it any other way, and I don't like to put one broad brush on people.
And that's not the totality of the Republican Party. I don't know what that is up there. So.
Yeah. No, I know.
Thank you very much on behalf of Pembroke, Kankakee County, once again, my former neighborhood. Thank you again.
Pembroke that has moving away from cocaine.
My name is Jen Roth. I'm from Urbana. Thank you for coming. When Senator Van Hollen went down to El Salvador to meet with Tomar Garcia, that was a sort of legislative use of congressional power that made a huge difference in really sort of bringing that to the forefront. I guess what I'm wondering is, I guess I would like to hear you say, oh yeah, all the Democrats in Congress are racking their brains looking for those sort of non-legislative levers of power that they have, that they can use. It hasn't really felt like that certainly with a lot of people, but are there still people who need to sort of be pressed? I'm not asking for names. Are there people who need to sort of be pressed to sort of see the urgency and the extreme, really existential danger of this administration, to press them into using those levers? Or is there some folks that are still sort of going, okay, we'll wait till midterms, it'll be fine, keep our heads down?
We could change things right now. We would change things right now. When we talk about the midterms, I guess in a way that's more reality in a way, because we don't want people to think we can do things, you know, tomorrow, but when it comes to legislation. But what I've always said, no matter who's in office, I still do the things in my district. Like, I still have my housing fair so people don't lose their housing. I still have my job fairs to help connect people to jobs. I still have my health fairs. You know, I do what I can do in my district. I had to know your rights so that I knew that undocumented folks wouldn't come, but all the people that deal with them, like schools and agencies, that they would know what the rights are. So there's still things that we can do that are not legislative, you know, more programming or, you know, different things like that, that a lot of us are doing. I have had a couple of teletown hall meetings. My district is so big, it's hard to have town hall meetings all over. So one had 11,000, this is this year, another had 13,000, and then I bring like an expert on with me if it's topical, you know, or something like that. And I did do some face-to-face. I went to Eastern Illinois, which is outside of my district, but that's Boss and Mary Miller. Like, they have a piece of it, I guess. So I did one there. And then I went to Peoria. Now, that's Eric Sorensen's district, but because I went to Bradley, they wanted me to come because it was, and he could have come, but they wanted me specifically because they wanted me to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I started the Black Alumni Scholarship there and the endowment in 1992. And it's still going strong. And the students were very worried about, but everybody came to the president. So those are things, you know, we're doing too, going out of our districts. Plus, we have to call them shadow hearings, because as Democrats, we're really not allowed to have hearings, but Hakeem said they're breaking all the rules, so we'll break some too. So we've gone to, we've been in California, Norfolk, Virginia, Philadelphia. We're going to New Orleans. We're trying to get right to Steve Scalise's district and another person too. And then we're trying to go places where Biden won the district, but Biden won, or Biden or Harris, I should say, won, but a Republican is still the state rep or congressperson. So we're trying to go to their districts because they're scared. You see Don Bacon in the blue dots not running again. You know, so there is some effect, and also whether it's state, mostly, or other places where there's been elections, Democrats have won 15 out of 17. So this is in Iowa, this is in Pennsylvania, so that's given us hope too, that, you know, people are listening. And the other, I know I'm being long-winded, I'm sorry, but the other thing that we learned from this past election, that we have to use our leverage. I love David Muir, I watch him every night, you know, ABC, but we can't just do ABC and frankly, MSNBC, CNN. You know, social media is important, the influencers are important, the podcasts are important. Like, we realize we have to do more, because really, a lot of times, like, the legacy hasn't done us any good, because they never report what we're doing or the fights we've won. And as I mentioned already, you know, the AGs have been fantastic. And they come to DC, like Kwame has been to DC many times with Keith Ellison and Tish and others, to keep us informed, to let us know, you know, what's happening. And the ACLU has been wonderful, you know, and they're helping us speak to our constituents.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Jeff Dugan. I'm one of the co-leaders of Champaign County Indivisible. I want to give you a moment to dream big for just a moment. Let's imagine a hypothetical Project 2028, in which between the Democratic Party and the Democratic Socialists of America, every single federal, state, and county office that is on the ballot in November of 28 is being contested. What do you think are the three most important, or fewer if you like, issues for that slate to run on? And I'll actually take my answer from my seat because I'm in the front row.
You know, when we talked about this during the last election, people kind of made fun of us a little bit when we talked about saving our democracy, but I think that people get it a little bit more now. And I know you guys got it, but I think that's very important, our freedoms, because our freedoms are being taken away. When I think about, women's reproductive freedom, when I think about what they want to do to public schools, in my district alone, I would lose 6,777 teachers if they do the most in the state of Illinois. When I think about, freedoms and opportunities, when you say you want to take away diversity, equity, and inclusion, which means everybody, by the way, when you want to take that away, and the only reason I'm here, or I've had the jobs and opportunities I have is because I'm Black, that's BS. So I know I'm qualified, and I earned, no one gave me anything, I earned everything. I didn't, I'm grateful to people, definitely, my parents and friends and that kind of thing, but I think saving our democracy and our freedoms, we still are fighting for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. I come from a family from New York City cops, and my nephews are Chicago cops, but we still are fighting for George Floyd justice and policing, and I just think, those things, we're still fighting for health care for everybody. We need that, and Lord knows we need immigration reform, and the thing about immigration reform, as they say, politics makes strange bedfellows. Yes, we want it, the farmers want it, the Chamber of Commerce wants it, so how can we have not, done that? So, and of course, I'm gonna say, gun violence, because it's still so prevalent. I mean, the number one reason our kids die, all the kids, that's absolutely ridiculous. I could go on, the environment, but I do think saving our democracy is so important because they are chipping away, little by little, trying to take, natural resources, trying to sell parkland, just, and I know, it means different things to different people, especially depending on where you live, but I really think people have more of an understanding. And of course, America being affordable. And I'm saying that as I remember when I got divorced, I know too much information, but I got divorced, I had 2 kids, and I remember having to eat Cheerios for dinner because I couldn't afford anything else. And I was a 2-time Bradley grad with a job at Bradley. When I was on, no one knew. My kids loved eating Cheerios for dinner, but they didn't know that's what I could afford.
I just have a quick statement from the person that asked about how to run for office. If you just Google organizations that help, particularly women, I did women, but you can do persons. There's a ton of people out there that really are helping. Emily's List, She Should Run, Emerge America, Vote, Run, Lead, Center for American Women, and those were just the top 5 that came out, and they're really, especially Emily's List, just does amazing things. So whoever, if anyone wants to run, they should look into these.
Thank you for saying that. I didn't do any of that. Sometimes it doesn't come to mind.
Congresswoman Kelly, can you tell us what your top priority would be in the Senate for sharing up the democracy and election integrity during the Trump era?
To shore up.
Sure, yes.
Well, I think, one thing about, even though, they said that, we cheated and all of that for him winning, but one thing I'll give a little credit to, that even the Republican in states like Georgia and other places, they did not go along with their program. That they did put their job first. I mean, I was shocked too, but they did speak up and they did agree with the Democrats, Secretary of State, or who is responsible, that it was legal, and But I think that we still have to have watchdogs and, or I should say something better than that, inspector generals, to oversee elections. You know, if there's places that we're more shaky about, you know, to make sure we have the security, make sure we check, you know, the machines, even though there's so much vote by mail. And, you know, people try to put a lot of doubt on that, but there's many states that have done it, you know, for a long time now, like Oregon, that's all you can do there, and they seem very, very satisfied. I know people get shaky, and, you know, here some people talk about, well, the post office, we don't get our mail, I don't know about that here, but, you know, and so people don't feel confident about that, but I think that, you know, the more examples we can give of what has been successful, maybe that will, you know, calm people a little bit, but I definitely think that we need to make sure we have inspector generals in place and quite frankly, security, because we know also that they put things in place, I mean, changing voting places, we need to do things that they can't do that, or that there's set voting hours, not that you make it sure they're here, where people that may not agree with you may vote, or just like the thing about can't give the person water, you know, just silly things like that. But maybe we could put those kind of things in place to ensure there's more, I guess, uniformity.
Could you tell us what your view is of the big beautiful bill and Speaker Johnson?
Speaker Johnson is one of the biggest hypocrites that I know. And I'm so sick of, and please don't take this as disrespectful, of all of these highfalutin Christians that invite us to bipartisan prayers on Thursday, and they pray P-R-A-Y Thursday morning, and then they P-R-E-Y we don't really see him that much, but I just want to scream at him, shame, and, you know, and some other words too, but it's just so phony. It's just so unbelievable, and, you know, he's like, why can't we all get along, and God, you know, and all of that. I mean, some lightning bolts should come down. But, and actually, in one of my, in Energy and Commerce, she's not there anymore, Kathy McMorris Rogers, I'm sure she thought she was trying to be nice, but she said at the beginning she was the chair. This was last Congress. You know, I read something I want you guys to read, so I thought she meant Energy and Commerce stuff, so we could know more things. She handed out a Bible to everybody, and well, you know, everybody is not Christian in Congress, and everyone is not a believer in Congress. You know, they may be agnostic or, you know, whatever. You know, everybody's not the same. And I remember I didn't take the book. I just said, God, don't get me. But I didn't take the book because I didn't think it was appropriate. And really to be in solidarity with Jan Schakowsky, who's Jewish. And, but there were a few, Annie Custer, she's not there anymore. She thought it was very insulting. Annette Barragan, we didn't take the books. And so it's just so phony. It's just so phony. And what was the other? I'm so busy on Johnson.
What's the big beautiful bill?
Oh, the big beautiful bill is so, it's so horrible, repulsive, outrageous. There's not enough words. So insulting to the American people, and how they are not ashamed, and how they could go along with this and vote for this. And what I've said to my colleagues many times, that they keep saying, Robin, just shut up, that's the way they are. You know, because I keep saying to myself, they can't think this is true. They can't want to do this. More of their people will suffer than our people. You know, they have more of the rural areas. 9 rural hospitals, some of my districts, some not, are going to close. You know, in the more urban part of my district, there's a hospital I can think of right now, hanging by a thread. And my God, you don't care. The federally qualified healthcare centers, you know, I could just go on and on and on. And you know, and we try to bring it up every, you know, chance, you know, we could get. The other thing I wanted to say, just going back to Johnson for a second, but he's just representative of this. Whatever you are religiously, you know, as a member of Congress, you know, we shouldn't be trying to divide people, you know, and those kind of things. We shouldn't sow hate and all of that, and it's just too much of that. And you know, the senator from Utah, when the state rep and the other gentleman and their spouses that got shot in Minnesota, and for Senator Lee to make his comment, and then however you feel, but when the what am I trying to say? The councilman that won for mayor on the Democratic side, when he won, what one of them said, just so racist and ungodly, like, you know, I mean, it's just terrible. But I really think, you know, when Trump came in the first time, the decorum has dropped, you know, in the House. And you know what, sometimes we act ugly too. Taylor Greene was in the, you know, she was the Speaker Pro Tem, and she said to us, let's have some decorum. And it was so crazy. That is exactly what we did. We couldn't believe it. We were looking at her like, you have got to be out of your mind. And she's like so disrespectful. But you know, but the other frustrating thing is they let them get away with more. Like at the State of the Union, our people got pulled out.
Yeah.
She wears her hat, she and Bobart, screams out, liar, do this, they never pulled them out. But our people got pulled out. A number of people got, and then, you know, some left, of course, you know, but yeah, it's very disappointing, but you know what, I'm not gonna let anybody steal my joy, and I'm not gonna get weary, because people are depending on us, you know, to hang in there and fight the fight. And we gotta be resilient, and we gotta be, you know, resistant, if it makes sense.
I'm sitting in the other half of the leads of Champaign County as well. I'm a social studies teacher, and I teach 7th grade social studies at a middle school a couple blocks away from here. And a lot of what we're talking about today, and a lot of what I'm hearing you say, is really bringing up an issue for me that has come up as I've been teaching social studies throughout all of the Trump era, when he's running for office, and I'm reassuring my students. And one of the things that at the end of it, the first time around, I said, don't worry, we have 3 branches of government. Our government is designed so that those 3 branches will check each other and keep one branch from never getting more power than the others. That's not happening. That's not happening. We're seeing all the other 2 branches kowtow to this. I think I'm in company that I can say, this monster that's sitting in our house right now. And what are we supposed, like, I think everyone in this room is doing, right? We're all doing, we're all fighting every day. We're working hard, we're fighting. I know you're fighting. I know that there are people in Congress that are fighting, but there aren't enough of you fighting. So when we are watching the Constitution be violated consistently, and my own students, who it was fascinating to be teaching my 7th graders about the Constitution when he was inaugurated, and we watched him violate the Constitution, and my kids would watch the news and come in to me the next day and go, well, Mrs. Union, doesn't the Constitution say? And I would say, yes, it does. What are we supposed to do? Like, how are we supposed to keep having faith that our government is going to protect us?
You know, all I can say is, you're right, I'm fighting, but there's more than me fighting. You know, I believe that, and on every level of government, people are fighting. And when I say contact your folks, also don't let the Republican state reps and state senators get away with it. Let them know, you know, how you feel also, and you're watching them also. I know it's not a lot, you know, in Illinois.
They don't really listen and they don't really respond.
They don't what?
They don't really listen and they don't really respond when we reach out.
But they need to know there's a lot of you,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that feel like that. And of course, if it's in their district, that's, you know, even better. Like I said, you know, they have ceded power to the president. There is no, you know, doubt about it. And, you know, we're hoping that, like I said, Don Bacon's not running. The person we have running against him came really close. I don't think he's gonna do it again because he tried twice, and I think he's not gonna do it, but there's another person, you know, stepping up. The thing is, it's interesting because I'm trying to think how this, you know how in the Senate, they have to have 60 votes. That's saving us some too, because the Senate doesn't have it, and there's like 5 or 6 Republicans that are not going along with the bill. But honestly, some want to make it worse, you know, than it is. They want more taken out of Medicaid, but thank God, this time the parliamentarian is striking it down, and telling them that they have to have 60 votes. It can't just be majority vote. And so that's what's helping, you know, that's what's helping us also. And it, like, we never thought we would say, yay, Josh Hawley. But when we had the 26.5-hour markup in Energy and Commerce, we were quoting Josh Hawley, that this is immoral, you know, and of course, like he's saying, it's political suicide, you know, also the things they're doing, because again, more of their people, you know, will be hurt. But again, the 60 is saving us, the parliamentarian is saving us right now, and then the AGs. And I know it's easy for me to say don't get weary, but we don't want you to get weary because you're keeping us going too. You're keeping us going because, you know, sometimes I'm cursing more than I ever curse, you know.
There's power in the cuss word, honey. And if there isn't actually, at least it makes you feel better.
You're not important, go ahead and say it.
You're among friends.
I'm among friends. I don't know if there was any young people. I know my grandson's back there, so here I'm 10.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. This is
Sorry,
sure.
I don't mean to interrupt, but speaking in regards to some people who don't feel like Congress is doing a lot and a lot of our powers are being seceded to Trump. My name is Stephanie Sable. I'm from Southern Illinois. So I have lovely Mike Bost as my representative, who, even though you speak out, and there has been a lot of speak out. For the No King protest, there was over 2,000 in Carbondale. There was over 500 in O'Fallon, 1,000, I don't know if Alton is his, but Belleville had close to 1,000. So there's a lot, and then your smaller towns. He speaked out before that and said that he got into contact with sheriffs and chief of police, and he keeps calling us radical leftists. So I think you keep telling us to speak to our people, especially the ones who live in Boss, Miller, LaHood, who will not listen to us, and who also will tell his constituents, you know, his constituents are like true believers. And I think another reason is, so with the Trump administration and their, you know, unconstitutional acts left and right every day, but people, and I have heard it from my neighbors, that he thinks that they're getting stuff done. So, and how Congress, you know, state, federal, it takes time. But people think, oh, he's an outsider, he's getting things done, not really understanding that this is unconstitutional, but they still get things done. So how can we, as Blue Dots, tell our neighbors, these people who are very, I know it's hard, very MAGA, that this is not how things get done, and how can we fight against that, the not remain the status quo?
Well, I want to say thank you to you guys, and the thing is, I know it's hard, but you got to keep it up.
Yep.
He's going to act like he doesn't hear you, and he doesn't know what's going on. He knows, you know, because they come back and say, they've said, you know, we're paying Democrats to show up, but we also know, we've seen it time and time again, Republicans come also. So it's easy for me to say, but don't it's not easy actually, but don't give up. And because it's just really important that he sees that you can say that crap. But also the other thing is, I don't know how to say it any other way. Things are not getting done. Things are not getting done.
Yeah.
First of all, they're fighting with each other. The Freedom Caucus are fighting with their regular people. Just like now, the House Democrats are fighting with the Republican Democrats. So I don't know what they think is getting done.
I think a lot of them watch Fox News. I work in healthcare. I work in a rural hospital, so I see a lot of my kids, my patients watch Fox News. Lord have mercy on me. So and everything, but it is propaganda, and they see like, oh, Trump did this, he's taking away this, and Doge is doing this, and we need Doge in Illinois, and all this stuff. So they see what's being presented to them and not the back end. So again, but these people still be like, oh, they're doing that. So obviously it's working for us, and we're going to continue voting for that way or supporting that person.
Another thing is, I don't know how much it's impacted where you live, but Doge, a lot of people have lost their jobs. And it's Democrats and Republicans. They didn't look at how you voted. A lot of people, have lost their jobs. So, and there's a group that has gone around for 15 weeks. I spoke to one group maybe 2 weeks ago, and they were all the USAID people. So you cut USAID, then you did the tariffs, and now you want to cut SNAP. Who's going to be affected? Who is being affected are farmers. And, so tell them to go talk to some of their farmers, who a lot of them are not Democrats, and they were just in my office. They were just in my office the other day. And they even admitted another time they were in my office this year. We know most of us voted for him. There's a lot of buyer's remorse. And I wish those folks would step up, because even with SNAP, you don't give them the benefits. Well, they're not shopping at whatever your grocery store, Kroger, whatever it is, Jewel. And so then they're gonna have to lay off people because not as many people are shopping, and then they're not gonna buy from the farmers. We are all in this together, and then also what you speak to is all the misinformation. That's a big part of it. I was at a forum today and someone pulled me aside and said we have to do more. The thing I'm trying to figure out is, like, I send to my constituents newsletters or email. Not that everybody looks at email, it's hard to capture everybody, but we do all kind of different things. But if you live in a red bread, you don't see the same thing. And what can we do? Because the news doesn't even talk about, what we do. Like, what can we do to get that information to more people?
Thank you.
And thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I know we're a little over time, but I think this one last question is important. It came from one of the audience members. It's about reproductive health and the burden that is put on women. What happens to women and girls that are raped and abortion is illegal? What happens?
Can I frame this?
Yes.
I want to frame it. So yes, thank you, Congresswoman Kelly, for coming here. We are very happy that you're here. It's not just that part. Right now, of course, Planned Parenthood is going to be funded totally because of what SCOTUS did, and we have women who are raped, girls who are raped all the time. We always talk about what happens to them, especially like I'm a retired RN, and I worked oncology most of my working life, but initially there was a point in time that I was practicing on gynecology floor, and during the middle of the night when we got an admission, and it was a gynae admission, it was usually an ectopic pregnancy that had burst, and we were getting a post-op after a belly full of blood, and here not only are these reproductive rights screwed, and there are women now that are having ectopics that they don't want to touch, and ectopics are never viable. That a lot of times they're going to burst the fallopian tube, they're going to have a belly full of blood, and on top of that, what if they're raped? My question is, okay, we always worry about the woman and what happens to the woman. What happens to that darn rapist? That's what I want to know. I mean, the rapist doesn't get anything. The courts ignore it. Especially, let's say, for example, it's a high school guy. They're saying, well, we want to give them a little, we want to ruin his life. Yeah, we don't want to ruin his life. We want to be flexible about this. We don't want that. What we really want is for him to just slide. Well, the woman or the girl, and a lot of times it's a 15 or 16-year-old girl, she has her life ruined. So my question is, how do we get it so something is done about these rapists, and maybe we would not have such a problem.
Anyone who rapes anyone, whether it's the person or it's a familial kind of thing, they need to face the law and they need to go to jail and do whatever we would normally do to anybody that breaks the law and accosts a woman or a girl. I mean, there's no excuse. And yes, people do dumb things in high school, but that is over the top. And any high schooler, should know that. And how long have we been saying no means no? And I think a high schooler would understand that. Changing the topic a second, one of my colleagues was pregnant. I don't know if y'all heard about this. One of my colleagues was pregnant, and it turned out it was ectopic. She lives in Florida, where they have the rule. It doesn't matter. We took one of our hearings in Florida last year and heard from 2 moms that wanted to have their babies. They weren't trying to have an abortion, but it didn't go the way they hoped. And the one mom, the baby died in her stomach, and they would not do an abortion. And they said, almost, I'm paraphrasing, go in a parking lot, and when you're almost there yourself, then we can do it. So it's so interesting how my colleague, when she had that, and Florida had the rule, and they were following the rule, of course she used her, I'm the congresswoman and all of that, when it was her party that put all that in place, and actually said the reason they wouldn't, they refused her was because of the lefties. That we forced the hospital
to make the craziness
not to treat her, so, it's like you don't care until it happens to you. But even like I say about gun violence, just how many people have to be killed or maimed, or who does it have to be before we do anything? Does it have to be one of their children? It doesn't even have to be them, because Steve Scalise was shot, Gabby Gifford was shot, but just who is it that will finally make them do something? Even LGBTQ+. I don't know if this was the one I came in or right before, the Republicans fought against it, and the one of the Republicans, his son told him, I'm gay, then all of a sudden, it was a whole different, ball game. It's really sad.
Can Democrats kind of get up and talk about this more, though, in the news, and kind of fight back on all of these stories coming up, or that are happening every day, that are so hypocritical and just so outlandish? I feel like there could be a stronger force, or even just one person, a leader, going up and just listing all of the hypocrisy and all of the tragedy and all of the ridiculous things that the Republicans are doing that just get passed over so fast because that's the next banning chaos topic coming.
We do message every day, different people do messaging, but it's on C-SPAN. They don't, and then also Hakeem Jeffries speaks every day, or Pete Aguilar. He's the Democratic chair after all of our meetings. They do get up and speak, but how many people watch C-SPAN? That's the problem. And what I'm talking about was in the paper. If you look up Cat McCormick.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I know you might have other things. Sure.
I just want to thank all of you, and for your commitment, for your staying together. I mean, it's so important. really, I know we represent you, but you're the important ones. You are the important ones, and we work for you. So that's why your voices are so important, just so important. And I just want to thank all of you for taking the time. I know you've been here a while, for taking the time to be here, to listen, to ask questions. And some of the things you said to me, I'm going to go back and say, hey, we need to look at this, or how can we do better, with that? How can we, project even more? We think we're projecting, but we're projecting in our own districts, in a way, and that's why, we're taking the show on the road. They are going to come to Chicago, but I'm hoping that I can convince them to do Chicago and then do downstate also, I know we're having a town hall meeting in Pontiac. That was so appreciated. And then when I went to Eastern, to Charleston to do it there, and my whole thing is I want everybody to know they're important. You don't have to live in Chicago. You don't have to live in Cook County. Like I said, my entrance into Illinois was Peoria, where I lived for many years, worked, and my kids were born there. Everybody's voice is important, and I just want people to realize that. So thank you guys so much for Thank you. I was a party chair. He was one of the party bosses.
Actually, let's.
Okay, act like you like each other. Okay. Marcy, move it. 3, 2, 1.
Now can I do one? John. Sure. John Moore. Can we do one stand here?
Sure.
No, but they don't mind.
We're going to take everybody's picture.
Very good job, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to take this. Okay, let's make an announcement.
Hey, everybody, we're going to take a big group picture with the Congresswoman.
You are in.
Also, there's another announcement I have to make. There were a whole bunch of box lunches left over, and so if anyone would like to take a box lunch or two home, please do. We'll have to ask them because they put it in the refrigeration. So, but let us know if you're interested in taking a box lunch home. If not, they have to throw them out.
So when we're done with taking our picture, there's still more programming. Don't forget, we have a little bit more to do. Not much, but a little bit more. So get our picture and we're back to work.
Oh, free. I can sit to it.
Thank you for coming to our Hands Across Chicago rally.
Oh,
When we had the big chicken.
Yeah.
It was great.
I remember that.
Thank you. Everybody stand behind her.
We're all donors. Joey works in the district's office.
Where are we facing?
Congress, good luck.
Can you get it?
One, two, three.
Indivisible.
All right. One more. three.
Indivisible. With liberty and justice for all.
The best. When I'm with you, I also see you from New York.
Oh, yeah. Great.
No, oh, we're back. I don't think some of them.
So I've been taking some pictures, and I'm going to put them in PowerPoint.
Everyone, we're going to remove in about 10 minutes, so if you need to use the restroom, someone networking.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's settled at all. That's for sure.
Thank you for being here.
Did you guys have a good night? No, I'm not yet. We still have some more stuff. But we're not like, we just drove up this morning. Yeah, I live like an hour and a half. Yeah, it's not. But I also drive here. I park here.
Are you going to
I didn't realize that the water came all the way down. Yeah, I'll apologize. And you know, Peoria Heights, I know where goes all the way right up to transition, like, goes right up to
More or less. Give me contact information.
I am also going to go
He's already got a show. So we know. But not for the yeah.
Collecting a couple more days of contact information. Especially because they are associated with the college.
I just wanted to say gratitude.
And the statewide's taking a little bit
I'll work for some of the people, some of the time.
I've heard that one. All the cameras. Doing all
Got it. Okay.
Don't forget there's t-shirts back there. And somebody's notebook.
Oh, that's a nice leather bound. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, we're snagging names and contact information from people. The next active meeting is not actually is Sunday.
I grabbed Dave's. All right, you can tell Jackie.
Video said
Said that she needs to get to an Indivisible event. We'll have a oh yeah, that was
There's going to be a Trump with in the Trump handing out flyers and training. Yes. We won't be there.
She's only this big.
What I've heard so many times you do want to you sound exactly the same. I've heard that so many times. I wanted to say hi because I keep saying I know. I'm like, I'm up there watching it. It's great. I'm trying to get my phone on. Drop in. Place I can tell them to go.
Well, you know what we do.
Okay. You might have already the guy tie-dye, David.
I know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. He and I actually met at
we're still.
And then turn around and give myself.
It's not over yet. Not over yet.
Okay, so he's already connected with you, and then I don't have to do anything.
Right now, remember when
He's
you
an
guys all
excellent
broke out
human,
into groups and you were talking about what your regions were going to do? Well, we want to know what your regions are planning to do. So everybody sit down, have a seat. We would like the people who are leading the breakouts to come up and talk about what your group decided. So everybody, go ahead and sit down. Thank you.
Because I got my group planning earlier.
Yes. And you
if you need me, I got you.
Okay, so I think what we'll do is right now I see Melanie over there, so maybe we'll start out with the Northwestern Illinois. Okay, everybody, Northwestern Illinois. Here we go.
Hello, thank you. So we had a very small group. We were the group out in the hallway that you walk past. I think there were about 7 or 8 of us. We had a few representatives from the Quad Cities area, and then a few of us that were from Rockford or greater Rockford area as well. The 2 Indivisible local groups that were represented are both in the fairly new or reorganizing stages from some past groups. So it was some really interesting discussion. A few of the challenges that we identified during our discussion, so the bulk of our area is either the 17th or the 16th. And so we talked about Sorensen and LaHood, and we talked about accountability and making sure that both of those electeds are representing our values, and how for both of them that can sometimes not align with our values. Yeah, if you want to. I don't think anybody's gonna be able to see my handwriting. I feel like I'm holding my own notes in a giant form here. So we talked about our elected congressman not always representing our values. We talked about, as well as some other areas, but being an extremely large area, right? So there are a few other very active indivisible groups kind of between our 2 locations, but not quite as many as in other parts of the state, right? So we've got a lot of area to cover, and a lot of very different needs depending on specific characteristics of each of those areas as well. We also talked about some very specific issues that we would like to continue to talk about because they are greatly impacting our area. We talked about some police brutality concerns, ICE, and then as well as mental health issues. And those are issues in all parts of our state, we all know that. But we're definitely feeling some of those concerns in our area. And then the last thing, and this kind of was an overarching theme as we continued to talk, was making sure that because of the size, because of the number of different groups, because of new groups and established groups, overall communication and that coalition building was a big discussion and focus for us, and I'm sure we'll hear that from other groups as well. Some of our goals and actions are that accountability, and we talked about the accountability not just for LaHood, but the accountability for Sorensen, right? And not just focused on our congresspeople, but those were the 2 that kept coming up in our discussion. So our accountability for all of our electeds, no matter what party they represent, right? And then a variety of really effective and intentional rallies, protests, and marches, making sure that we're holding those high visibility events, but that we're doing so with intention so they can be the most effective. And again, the number one thing we talked about was communication and coalition building across the areas, across groups that aren't close together, because our entire area is the 16th and the 17th, not all of it. I know some other people from Central are gonna talk about 16 stuff too, possibly. But that's a large area, right? And it's a lot of mileage, and it's a lot of, we had some great contributions in our group. We were talking about like how many media outlets are in that area, right? That's a lot of different cities and a lot of different like farmland areas as well. So a lot of different needs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, by the way, after we get this done, we're gonna have a little bit of a wrap up after everybody gets done presenting. And one of the things we want to also give out is rally signs. See these signs that are up over here? Everyone gets one. Anyway, so how about, let's have suburban people. Suburban people, you want to come up and...
Ready? We had a great session. We had a great session. We talked, a lot of people interacted and shared everything with us. We went through, I don't know, you want to talk about the process we...
Candace, hold the mic closer.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
So everybody contributed greatly. We started going through issues, which are many. And then Bill did a great job, and Rebecca did a great job of writing this stuff down. So what we did though is we let everybody have their top 3 vote. Bill, you want to talk about, Bill did all this counting, I loved it.
I'm a kind of just a guy, so I counted very quickly. It was great. By the way, we had 50 people in that room, all with an opinion or 6. So it was really, really great. So Rebecca wrote them down as fast as she could, and we just asked everybody to just kind of fire it out, and they did. And everybody started building on what the next person said. And then the next person started building on it. It was exciting, it was wonderful, and you did a great job.
Thank you.
So we asked everybody to do 3 votes. 3 times 50 would be 150 votes. So
this should add up to 150.
I think it adds up to 165, but I don't know how many times I voted or you voted. So Rebecca, thank you so much for being our scribe and taking down all the data and everything.
And so after the election that we had today, we ended up with 3 shared goals, 3 top shared goals out of many. One of which is that we would like to foster collaboration across Indivisible groups, given that there are so many in the suburbs of Chicago. We know there's a lot of cross-pollination that already happens, and we can build on that. The next one we thought was very important was fighting disinformation, both that affects our community and the more conservative side of the spectrum. And lastly, we really have a pretty strong record up in the burbs of having rallies and protests and sort of community action. And so we want to continue that and really make sure that when we have those actions that everybody leaves with a call to action. Everybody leaves with an assignment and a purpose, and we are open to exploring additional tactics. A potential strike was mentioned, so that is something that people will be entertaining and noodling on, to use the scientific term.
The other thing we talked about, which didn't get voted on really highly but came up a lot, was we would like to all upscale our tech capabilities. So one of the things that Indivisible Illinois can help with is providing resources, even if it's just pointing at national resources, Facebook ads, all the different databases that people could use. So it would be really helpful if Indivisible Illinois could kind of centralize for that. Anything else, Bill?
It was so cool. Who would have thought that while all of us have the same objectives and goals, that we would have so many different comments and ways to get to it. And I learned a lot. I don't know, what about you guys? It was fun.
Very educational.
There is a secret page here called Tactics, but we didn't get to vote on it.
So it's a secret and no one can know about it.
But everybody wanted to continue to work on this, though.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to continue to work on it. So as a group, you know, rural, local, city of Chicago, etc., we should all continue to work together and build these coalitions and learn how to communicate in our social medias, etc., and drive Trump out.
That's right.
Okay, you guys are awesome, just like Okay, next is going to be Central Illinois.
I like that.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, last time I had the mic, they turned me off. But Jody and Melanie, where's Melanie? Back there, we're our partners in crime and we were the facilitators. So we filled out 4 of these flip charts of ideas. We did a really good job of brainstorming ideas that were issues. And then we did our dot voting, which was a little confusing at first, but it was really fun to get everybody to come up and put their dots up here. And if anybody has extra dots that they haven't turned back in, let me know. So we came up with our top 3 was on this flip chart. Due process was our winner, Medicaid, and Social Security and Medicare was our 3rd choice. And so those were our top 3. And then we also talked about what made our region, Central Illinois, doesn't sound very exciting, but our region is very unique and special. And we have big universities that we're going to leverage. We have good transportation. We have rural hospitals. We have the state capitol in our region. And we have smart people. I don't know if they were saying like smartest people in our region, but we just said smart people. So those are our success criteria, you know, that we can leverage. And then we talked about how we can help with the state goals a little bit. And then we also brainstormed quite a bit on different methods of communication. And at the end we said, do we want to all collaborate? And we had the biggest group. I think we were the biggest group. Yeah. And everybody wanted to try to collaborate, even though we had like 50 different tools on the list, and we have no idea what we should use to try to collaborate. But I think we're going to do something. Okay, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, and they rock like everybody else does, and actually since I'm a Central Illinoisan, what can I say? Okay, next is going to be Southern.
Yeah, there's a little mountains on there. Good looking out. Thank you. I got you. Hi, we're from Southern Illinois, so there's a couple groups with us. We have Indivisible Shawnee from Indivisible Monroe, then we had Indivisible Kaskaskia, and some other people from throughout the big region down south to help with us. So our most pressing issues that we agreed is poor representation. We have limited candidates. Not a lot of ours are challenged both within their own party or oppositional party. So we have that working against us. Number 2 would be actually Medicaid, because we are a big rural area, and that study that came out, 9 hospitals out of Illinois is potentially be shut down. Well, in my boss district, down in the majority of Southern Illinois, 6 of those are our hospitals. So Medicaid is definitely a huge contributing factor down in Southern Illinois. So that can affect us. And then immigration and ICE, we do have a big Hispanic population. We're big in agriculture and manufacturing. So those are those 2 primary occupationals for that too. And also we did say environmental. I know the coal ash issue does contribute down Southern Illinois as well. So how can the share goals, what are 2-3 impact goals that we can align statewide or even within our own Southern Illinois area? Build common coalition in our area. We are so big down there, so definitely find ways to come together in regards to that. Voter registration, appeal to those younger generation folks, and collaborate with like-minded organizations. So that's going to like festivals or anything except info tables and collaborate with them. And then what can we also do to help work with each other? Joint events, so simultaneously having rallies and protests. For example, next Tuesday, July 1st, Indivisible Shawnee in Monroe County is doing a Bother Post protest. So Indivisible Shawnee will be down in his Murfreesboro main office, and we will be up in Muscuda at one of his satellite offices and bother him. So try to get other groups and also as well, maybe also other groups in his district and go to all of his offices in regards to that. That could be an issue. Voting registration events, so simultaneously setting up events that we can register those voters, and then setting up a one communication media like Signal or Slack. Maybe have those leaders with the in those groups to be able to communicate more better and then collaborate. Otherwise, that's all we have. Thank you for your time.
You guys rock too. Boy, these are just rocking. Okay, we have one more group, and you know, basically it's last, but it's not the least, Chicago.
Hi, I'm Trish, representing the Chicago Proper Group, and I'm not coordinated enough to drag our thing over here, so I have notes on my phone, which is going to work out great because I can't read without reading glasses. So we kind of started out by making a list of challenges and issues like everybody else that ranged from really short-term things like how do we help our Chicago folks that are being targeted by ICE and by other types of discrimination, to what is the vision for the future, right? So we talked about affordable Chicago, we talked about the environment, we talked about things that at some point we know need to be really important on our agenda. Where we really ended up focusing our time, we actually had a group we had several young folks in our group, which is really exciting. And so we actually spent some time deep diving on how can we expand and attract more people into the effort, particularly younger people, because this is something that's been a huge concern for us in Chicago. And so we talked about several things. We talked about, first of all, what kind of events, what would get a younger person to show up. We talked a little bit about some of the barriers in terms of they're trying to build their lives and their families and what impact does that have. We talked about that events, at least to start with, they need to have some element of fun, and that's really important for attracting them. We talked about the fact that that a lot of the young folks think that their peers need to understand a lot more about what they can do, why it matters, why should they show up, why do they need to be engaged. So we talked a little bit about how to incorporate that. We also talked about the fact that an event needs to feel very inclusive and welcoming from the very beginning. So how do you make sure that when those young people, and not just young people, but when somebody new walks in the door, that they're immediately kind of embraced and brought into the effort and made to feel like they're a part. So we talked about several things that I hope we can implement on that front. Then we kind of shifted a little bit, and like the suburbs, the folks in the suburbs said, we have a lot of Indivisible chapters in Chicago, so we also talked a bit about how do we want the collaboration to work. We already have a Indivisible Chicago Alliance, but we talked about what do we really want that alliance to do, what role do we want it to play. We talked about how can we expand the people that are aware of that alliance and what it's doing. So we talked about what kind of tools we can use, like Slack and things, so that we can open up the communication of that group to a much broader group of members. I think things like Slack are also things that younger folks are a lot more used to communicating on. And so I think we didn't quite come to an exact action plan on the collaboration piece, but that was the other piece that we really focused on quite a bit.
Thank you. And now we're going to give some brief reflections, and then we will have call to actions after that. So I'm going to first welcome up one of the national staffers. I'm going to welcome up Aya to talk about her reflections of the day.
Be quick. Okay, I'm gonna read from my list so I can really hit everything. First of all, it was so great being here with all of you today. I feel inspired to see your guys' motivation. Sometimes it can be really hard to do this work, you know, when you guys know, when you feel like you're not winning, like it's really difficult. But just seeing how passionate you all are and how much more good that actually exists, it feels very encouraging. So number one, I want you all to remember that state and local elected officials have significantly more power and impact than you think they do. Two, sometimes a campaign, and I had a lot of conversations with folks after we did our little activity, but I want you all to remember that sometimes a campaign needs to start with ensuring that there's public education and knowledge to make sure that everybody's on the same page. A lot of people talked about miscommunication and misinformation that exists. That just doesn't just exist in terms of fear mongering. A lot can get lost in translation, right? And then also, one of our goals is to rebuild democracy, and in rebuilding our democracy, we have to acknowledge that not everybody grew up having resources surrounding how the government functions, and that happened for a reason. AKA, if you look at, you know, our rural neighborhoods, our black and brown neighborhoods, a lot of us didn't have access to how our governments work, and that's on purpose so that we don't stay involved. So sometimes our campaigns start with education to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Three, I want to remind you guys to lean on Indivisible National for templates using the resources we already have. So if you go to bluestatedefiance.org, those are all the materials I worked on. A lot of people kept talking about immigration. Somebody even mentioned the whole masking debacle of law enforcement detaining people and kidnapping people while being masked. And we actually just released a resource and CTA on that, targeting your governor, attorney general, and city council on Thursday. So it's a brand new resource that you'll find on bluestatedefiance.org, as well as if you just go to our website and just look up Blue State, a Democrats Safeguarding Democracy resource will come up, which is pretty much a little template for you to use to advocate on the state level. Remember to work from the ground up, so micro to macro, so that you don't get overwhelmed. So think, what does your specific city or state need, not federally, because everything gets tied back to federal. This is all to be used to build up for 2026 and 2028, right? So you're getting prepared to know who to vote for and who to hold accountable on every single level in electoral politics. And then finally, remember that the more people involved in your advocacy, the better. So that starts with making sure all of the groups are involved, connecting regionally. I'm sure you guys have a lot of cross communication happening and a lot of issues that are similar. And then get other people involved. Think No Kings, how many organizations were involved. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much, and good luck.
Okay, as far as my reflections go, one thing is that I've always felt is that everyone should do everything as a collaborative. There should be a hub with all sorts of spokes to it, so everybody is connected. And I think that is what this particular convening was for. So I mean, Indivisible Illinois in general, the umbrella organization being a hub for everybody's spokes, so everybody can work together. That is my reflection.
It's always hard to be third because it's like, what else do you come up with? So number one reflection is the energy in the room was great today. I mean, there are passionate people, there are just creative people, that we should all take comfort in that. We need each other. The other thing that I'll note is that we, as you learned by looking at the panel discussion, our allies, we all have to remember that we cannot necessarily do everything, but we can support things. So if there's groups that we saw today that are really good at pushing back and helping people, you can donate to them. So if you feel like you can't solve that problem, you find the ally that can, and sometimes they just need some resources, money. So don't forget that, the donations, and then we can do the parts that we can do. And then also, when we talked about, all that we have to get done, there are people already doing things that we probably don't know, including within our own groups. So the coordinating among the groups is really important, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I'll just use one example. I talked about out in Truth Brigade, Illinois, and a lot of people, I guess, were asking, what the heck is the Truth Brigade, Illinois? So obviously getting the word out that, and this is just social media we do every 2 weeks. So making sure that we're talking to each other, explaining what we're doing, and can people just lob onto that, to use a totally strange word, rather than reinvent the wheel. And then we can get things done and we do it together. So that's my
Hey everybody, I'll make it quick. So my reflections, y'all are really smart and really creative. So just to echo that. And you all also are just so kind to each other and just have such a collaborative spirit, and you're open to all the ideas that everybody had to share, which was so lovely, because we're not going to be able to implement every idea, but we have to be open to every idea, and we have to make room for all different kinds of people in this network. And I want to give a shout out both to people who are new to the Indivisible network and the people who have been around since 2017, 2018, however long, because we need everybody. And I really think that what we're doing here is gonna be historic. There's never been anything quite like this. People who are getting together to organize to act locally, but also collaborate regionally, statewide, and at the national level with the backing of a national organization that's well funded thanks to our really generous donors. So, we've got something special here. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it, and thank you for having us.
I will be very brief because I know that I'm one of the ones keeping everyone from dinner. But my reflections are that we are stronger together. And I think that's something that we saw together. That's the purpose of this entire day, is to show the strength of us unified as a state to accomplish fantastic goals. And there are a number of things that we can do here in Illinois. We know that we are lucky to live in Illinois, where we have many protections in place. Not only can we continue to build a Trump-defiant state here within Illinois by putting protections in place, but we can also assist the states that surround us that don't have a lot of those protections in place. And that's some of the things that we're going to focus on over the next 2 years. So one of the things that I saw throughout the day, we started with the Blue State Defiance campaign. We're going to be sending out some details for you all on that. We're going to continue this. This is a continued conversation. This is just the start of the conversation. It's not the end of the conversation. So there'll be surveys that are going to be coming out to you all within the next week or so, just on today, on things that you're interested in getting involved with. We know that there are a number of people who are here today who are a part of Indivisible groups. You'll be able to take this information back and share it with your fellow members. There are also people here today that may not be a part of an Indivisible group. There may not be an Indivisible group active in your area, and you may be interested in starting a new Indivisible group. We can assist you with that as well, and we'll be reaching out to you on that as well if you're interested in starting an Indivisible group in your area, or perhaps there's a specific issue that you're interested in that you haven't heard us talk about today that you want to focus on. That's something that we can help you with as well. So there's a lot that we discussed here today. I am very pleased at what I saw. I walked around and listened to a lot of the things that were happening during the regional breakouts, and I heard some fantastic ideas. We as a board are going to go back and we're going to talk about some of those ideas and how we can help you all to implement those ideas. What I want you all to think of yourself, we're just facilitators of the board. You all are Indivisible Illinois. You make up the organization itself. It's all of your groups. It's all of you being active with us. So we do want to give a couple of next steps as well, some immediate actions that we're going to take after this. So there are a few things. So there is a rally that is coming up in a few weeks. It's John Lewis. It's the John Lewis Continuing Good Trouble. That's going to be coming up. So you'll be getting some information on that. We definitely want to honor John Lewis and all of the sacrifices that he made. So we'll have some information on that coming up. There are rallies that are taking place all across the state. We're working with allied organizations on this, and some of us are organizing these events ourselves. We also have a number of voter contact activities that we're doing. So we are phone banking every Sunday, and I know Marcy's going to talk a little bit more about that, the phone banks that are happening every Sunday. We also have our neighborhood Canvas Leader program, and that's where we are going out into our own neighborhoods and we're talking with constituents just about their elected officials' positions. We're also going into some of those more red areas of the state, and we're talking with them just about their elected officials' positions on the issues. And we're doing that in a nonpartisan way. We're going out and we're just telling them the voting record of their elected officials. So those are some of the things that are coming up. In addition to that, we're looking to add people to all of our committees. So I co-chair the Communications Committee as well as the Voter Engagement Committee. If you're interested in educating voters, going out and talking with voters, or helping us to facilitate that, you can join that committee. And if you're interested in helping us with communication, you're interested in helping us to get out emails, you're interested in helping us to continue to grow on social media platforms like TikTok, that's something else that we're going to need help on as well, and building those relationships with the press. So I'm going to hand it over now to Marcy, who's going to tell you some other key takeaways for today.
So before I do next steps, I want to thank the organizers from National that are here. It's because of National donating money to us for this is why we're having it. So let's give them a big I, of course, am going to talk about phone banking. There's something else I want to talk about too. But as Patrick mentioned, and actually I co-chair both those committees with him. So we do phone bank every Sunday from 4 to 5:30. We are phone banking into the Illinois 12, the Illinois 16, and the Illinois 17, letting them know that letting their constituents know that their member of Congress voted to cut Medicaid and what that means to them and what that means to their district. So if you're interested in doing that, just let me know. I have it's on Zoom, so anybody from anywhere can do it. I have the mobilized signups for tomorrow, because we are going to be phone banking tomorrow, and also next Sunday. The other thing I wanted to let you know about phone banking is starting August 2nd, that Saturday, every Saturday from 4 to 5:30 until the November election in Virginia, we are going to be phone banking for Abigail Spanberger for governor of Virginia. So that's going to be really cool too. And that's going to start in August every Saturday from 4 to 5:30 on Zoom. So anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention. There is a group. It's an Indivisible group that's in Florida. Surprise, surprise, that has organized something called 50 Days of Shame.
Yes.
And okay. Okay.
We're July 1st.
Okay. Yes, we are July 1st. Hold that thought, Cecilia. Hold that thought. It's okay. But, okay. So I have to tell you, I apologize. I've been lax about advertising this because we've been working on this, but. This group in Florida, this Indivisible group, wants each state to concentrate on a day of 50 days where that state points to their Republican members of Congress and points to the person in the White House and says, shame, 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 look what they're doing. We have to blast it on social media. If we would have had more time after this, we could have even advertised going to people's offices and things like that, but just don't have that much time because we were working on this stuff. But those phone banks, the Illinois 12, 15 and 16, that group is amplifying them, even though even though our day for Illinois is Tuesday, this Tuesday, July 1st. So all of your groups, on all of your social media sites, even if you are not in the Illinois 12, 15, or 16, just blast those Congress people, blast the president, and just amplify it everywhere on Tuesday. But this Sunday, you can also talk to their voters and let them know that you are unhappy, that they should tell them that they are unhappy with how they have voted on Medicaid. So anyway, so that's my opinion. I'm going to turn you over to Linda now.
So I solely have to stand here and I guess get on camera. Not my favorite thing. So just a couple things. So obviously there's a lot of things we talked about today. We have to, as an executive board and then with leadership and then beyond, figure out, okay, how do we go forward? So that's going to be a lot of discussion in the next, I don't know, a couple weeks. We can't wait too long. And so, that's something we'll probably do some, I think Patrick mentioned a survey, but it's important that we do not lose the energy that we got here today. So your job is to bug us and say, hey, where are you at on this? And then we have to all work together. There's 4 of us that work very hard together, but we can't do it alone. So everybody's gonna have to help, because there's really a couple things that got talked about here. One is, making sure we're holding our representatives accountable, but also, how do we Trump-proof the state? So that's a statewide thing that we have to try to organize and make sure that we are going after our state government. I mean, they're great, but what else can be done? So there's a lot that has to happen after this. This was step 1. And so you'll be hearing from us, and again, your job is to bug us, even though we'll say we don't want to be bugged. So we're going to do our best to get things started. The other thing I want to point out, I talked about the wonderful posters in the back. It is really hard to keep track of all the groups. And so if you hear about a new group or somebody's trying to form a new group, you need to let us know. And I think we got everybody on there, but if you think somebody was missed, let us know that. And I think that's it. And don't forget t-shirts if you still didn't get a t-shirt. And there's rally signs in the back if you didn't get them. And don't go yet, because Patrick has one more thing.
The only thing I was going to say is, everyone please take one rally sign, and share that out at the events and other things that you're all right. But thank you. And if you didn't get a t-shirt, yes, please do wear it.
Now, hey, we also could use some help kind of taking things down.
Yes, because I know that the wonderful servers here do want to leave, so we're going to try to break everything down as quickly as possible and be out of here before 6 o'clock.
And let's thank them too, because they did a great job. Hey, the other people I want to thank are right over there. We have 2 people that have been working really hard the whole entire day. We have Dorita Jim. Everyone has done a really big
There is a Slack. You just gotta utilize it. Like to send out essentially from the Slack, and that's been part of the big issue. You can help us. If you can send me an email and say, yes. So we can make sure in every region. We were thinking of making it regional, and then if you all want to group with it.
There's no limit. So the good thing about it is that you can make public and private. So public, they're all channels. So public channels have a channel. Public, anybody can join. You say, okay, it's available, and I can watch it.
I freaked out in my car.
Private,
But then I remembered, wait, I decided not to go.
Like on our server, we have one private channel that's just solution team, and then we have the rest of like the team channels, like the communication team. We're in Northeast. What do you call it? What's your class? I don't know exactly the name. So I'm just curious. Right now it's just progress, but I started it literally a week and a half ago. So I'm still trying to get the leadership team in.
It is because you can
So Discord is about to function the same way basically in your channel. Fine, I don't really care. I'm in both all the time.
You can send me an email, let's discuss it. And if we need to get a premium version, we can do that. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe we do.
So the benefit, the bonus of being is that they will see the data but not saying you can't, you can look at the pay features if you like it, but then you're paying.
Everything that we needed to do. If you could shoot me an email,
yes,
we'll discuss.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. I think that Ed wants to take a picture of all of us again.
I should turn this camera off. I keep forgetting to do that. So, dinner is across the street.
Did Senator Ventura take off?
Esquire.
Okay.
I haven't seen
All right. She was one.
I can connect you.
I read
Well,
about
not it.
5% of my email.
There's a conversation I was having with somebody the other day to which I figured she might actually